We might have a few more join us later. We can go ahead and get started now. So let's consider this the call to order, and we'll ask AJ Curley to lead us off with the invitation.
Okay. All right, here we go. Dear Lord, thank you for today and giving us the opportunity to meet again. Today, I pray that we may receive your blessings because we are committed to helping others. May each of us in our day-to-day life come to know the joy of serving others who are not as fortunate as we are. May our motto that includes not just serving, but also caring and sharing be for us life service, not just in words, but in actions as well. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. And David, can you put the flag up for us?
Sure.
Thank you. So if you will, join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Amen.
It's a lot harder to do that and synchronize it when we're dealing with Zoom as opposed to being in person, but hopefully we won't be on Zoom forever. I do want to remind everyone that on our October the 13th meeting, we will be outdoors at the Salt Block, and we will be practicing social distancing, and we'll be asking our members to wear masks. We also will be sending you a notice that you can respond to, so we will know how many box lunches to provide for that day. Those invitations will be going out later this week or earlier next week. Now for our program. Our program is going to be, as many of us already know, from the Vice Chairman of the North Carolina State Board of Community Colleges, Mr. Bill McBrayer, and he will be presented to us by Coy Hudson. Coy?
Okay, thank you, President. It's my pleasure to introduce my good friend, Bill McBrayer. He's the Director of Human Resources at Lexington Brands, Home Brands, where he's worked for over 25 years, almost 26 years now. So he's got a long tenure there. Bill has been very active in the community, as you will shortly see, as well as at the state level in the area of education. As we've mentioned there, Bill is the Vice Chair of the North Carolina State Board of Community Colleges, which he's been on that board for 5 years. He's also on the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction Compliance Commission for Accountability. He's a member of the Catawba Valley Furniture Academy on the advisory board, as well as the founding member. He's a Ward 1 representative for the Hickory Regional Planning Commission. He's on the City of Hickory's Brownfield Advisory Committee. He's a member of the CBCC's Education Matters Task Force. He's a member of the Society of Human Resources Management. He's past president and member of the Piedmont Human Resources Association. He's also he's a member and past chairman of the Catawba County Employers Committee, and past member of the Workforce Development Board, Western Piedmont Workforce Development Board. He's also very active at St. Luke's United Methodist Church, where Julia and my wife go, and his wife, Laura. And his wife is Laura, and they have 2 sons. So you can see Bill is very, very involved. He's very active, and I don't know how he gets his work done at Lexington Home Brands with all these activities he's involved with, but thank goodness he's a very well-known representative and does a great job with all these communities and all his committed interest on these boards and committees. So it's a pleasure to introduce to you Bill McBrayer. So Bill, you've got it.
Thank you, Coy. That was quite a nice introduction. You know, Coy had given me some things to maybe talk about, and one of them was the Furniture Academy. And I thought, you know, I spoke to this same group probably 6 years ago when we were really trying to get the Furniture Academy up and running. So I wasn't going to bore you with any details on the Furniture Academy, with the exception, just to take a little bit to tell about that. It, for those that may not know what the Furniture Academy is, it's an academy that is industry driven. It's sponsored by CVCC, and we educate students to learn the discipline of furniture, and then we hire them in the workplace. To date, we have 274 graduates, and all 100% are gainfully employed out of that graduation class. So that's quite a thing to tout. During my relationship with the Furniture Academy and with the community colleges, I spent a lot of time in Raleigh, and I made some good contacts. When I go to Raleigh, I always walk down to the General Assembly and walk the halls and visit people. And I may be, you know, doing a little lobbying. I don't really consider myself a politician per se, but it just kind of comes with the territory. So when I have a chance to go down, I will. And I met Paul Coble, who is the CEO. His title is the Legislative Services Officer for the General Assembly. So basically, he's the CEO of everybody that's non-elected. And after about a year of courting him and just conversation and going to lunch, we talked him into parting ways with the love seats that sat in the Commons area down at the General Assembly that were kind of a rusty orange color, 1960s vintage. And ended up selling in 55 replacements that the Furniture Academy made and put into the General Assembly. And we made a big deal out of that because it was a big deal. Speaker Moore came down and made presentations to all the contributing companies. And so it was good for the students that actually got to make the pieces. It was good for the General Assembly to see a community college actually work at it and get that product in the building. There's two things that happen when I start talking about community colleges. One is I can talk a real long time, and Corey told me not to do that today. I only had so much time. And the other, sometimes I get emotional because it's such a dear piece of my upbringing. So I'm an isothermal, went to isothermal, which is in Rutherford County in Forest City. Back in the mid-'70s. I played basketball for isothermal, and quite frankly, that's all I did when I was at isothermal. I later on ended up going and getting my degree from Lenore Ryan, thus me staying here in the beautiful city of Hickory, North Carolina. Back to the Furniture Academy and Paul Coble. After we had done the 55 love seats for him, he called me about a few months later, and he says, "We're thinking about kicking out the press corps of the first floor of the General Assembly. I wondered if you'd be interested in making some furniture for us for a cloak room." It's a private member room to where the members can go in. You have to have a badge to get in. So we said, sure. So we made them sofa chairs and ottomans, put them in that room. They put a plaque up that says made by Catawba Valley Furniture Academy, which is part of Catawba Valley Community College. And so we got a lot of good publicity out of that. The last thing that he talked to me about was replacing the chairs at in the Senate and the House. Furniture Academy can't do that. Lexington Home Brands can't do that, but I did turn him on to a person that can do that. And so they came up and met, and they're in the midst of negotiation prices and samples and all to replace all the chairs in the House and all the chairs in the Senate. So with that said, I can assure you that Hickory and Catawba County is very well represented in Raleigh in that regard from the Furniture Academy. So now I'm going to move into community college, because that's basically, I think you'll enjoy that. Some of the things I'm going to talk about, you may or may not know, probably you don't know, but what I want to do is change your perception of what you think of when you think community college. So it started in 1963. It's the best kept secret in North Carolina. So I would ask each of you at the end of the day's program, as you go out into the community or wherever, that you spread the good gospel of community colleges. And I want to start out by sharing a few statistics with you. I don't want to bore you with statistics, but I think these are well worth mentioning. Today, we have 58 community colleges and 120 campuses. That's from Murphy in the west to Manio in the east and all in between. 58 campuses. Dallas Herring is known as the father of community colleges, and his famous quote is, we need to take people where they are and carry them as far as they can go. That quote's probably hanging in every community college in North Carolina. It has been the ones that I've been to. Another great statistic is that there's a community college within 30 miles of 90% of the population in this state. Let me repeat that. There's a community college within 30 miles of 97% of the population in this state. So there's no reason why somebody can't go get a good quality education at a low price. We're the third largest system in the United States behind California and Texas. We have the sixth largest student population in the country, right at hovering around 700,000. Our student population is more diverse than our state population. Our budget allocation is $1.45 billion with a B. $1.45 billion is our budget. Our students pay $76 per credit hour. And a lot of this thing that I'm talking about, if you think about when your kids went to a university and what they paid versus what the community college pays, the first 2 years are basically the same anywhere you go. And I can assure you that if I'd have been on this board in 2010 when our oldest son was going to NC State, he would have gone through CVCC on the way probably, because it's great education and great savings of money. We have an 86% retention rate of community college transfers into UNC schools. 86%. That's high. Now here's a statistic. If you're not sitting down, you might need to. It blew me away as well. If you take the population of UNC, and these are round numbers, give or take, 29,000 students at UNC, 34,000 at NC State. You combine those two schools and you still come up short of what our largest college of Wake Tech has at 70,000 students. That's just hard to comprehend to me. That's how big we are and how popular we are throughout the state. I have a good friend back home for our city that's on the board of governors, and they're always in the news. We're never in the news, and that's the way we like it as a state board of community colleges. We're always sparring back and forth. And I'll say, you know, y'all educate 100,000 students a year. We do 700,000 a year. You get them degrees, we get them degrees. They come out of your schools paying out the wazoo. They have a huge debt. Most of them don't have a job, so they move back home with their parents. Then their parents are riding their butts to get home to the community college so we can find them work. And so that's usually what happens. And so that's our fight back and forth that we talk about. Another question that Corey was asking me is what afforded me this opportunity to serve on the state board? And that's an interesting story in itself. So in April of 2015, I received a call from Jay Adams' office asking me if I would serve on the community college board. I'm like, sure. You know, they're throwing me a bone for helping out at the Furniture Academy, CVCC. It's close by. I won't even have to ask my wife. I won't have to ask my boss. I'll just do it. So they sent me this mound of paperwork, and it was a mound of paperwork, and it said state board. So I called them back. I said, this is the state board. They said, well, yeah. I said, well, I thought it was local. I said, that changes the whole dynamics. And I need to call my wife, and I need to call my boss, because in 1995, I helped develop and get a bill passed in the House, North Carolina House. It was House Bill 340 that talked about drug testing. And if you failed a drug test, you would usually cut people off. As an employer, I'd call the employment off and say, cut so-and-so off. They failed the drug test, so they're not eligible for hire. And they said, well, we can't. I said, well, why? They said, there's a law that won't, there's no law saying we can't. So long story short, I got real active on that. Charlie Preston was in the House at the time, rest his soul. He didn't get reelected, so I went with George Robinson out of Lenore. He was the number 3 seat in the House in 1995, which helped push that bill through. And it was became law in October of 95. But I got phone calls because some people liked that bill and some people didn't like that bill. And my wife answered one of the calls that did not care for the bill. And pretty rowdy person, probably had a few beverages by the time he got around to making a phone call. And she looked at me square in the eye, and I'll never forget it. She said, "If you ever run for public office, I'll divorce you." So with this nominee for the state board, I thought, well, I better ask her first, and then I better ask my boss, because it's each month, the 3rd Thursday and Friday, I have to travel to Raleigh. Now, we're not doing that during COVID, but regular times, it's the 3rd Thursday and Friday going to Raleigh. So they said, well, what you'll have to do is come down and speak to the caucus. You'll have to work the House members, and we need you on Wednesday. I said, I got 21 salesmen from across the country coming in on Wednesday. I can't. They said, well, the vote's on Thursday. I said, well, how about if I come on Tuesday? So I did. And my son Thomas at the time was a senior in high school, and he says, I want to go too. And I said, no, you need to go to school. He goes, no, I'm going with you. Well, having him with me was the cream on the, because it's like with a little cute little puppy dog walking down the beach. All the women come to look at the good looking girls will come up and look at the puppy dog, and it just magnetizes them. And so I had Thomas with me, young, good looking, strapping young man with a suit. All the old codgers at the legislature just attracted to him. So I got to have an audience with a lot more than I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. And we were talking to Speaker Moore, and he goes, I want you to, you and your son be my guest on the House floor. We're fixing to go into session. So we did. And during the session, he stopped and he said, the Speaker has a special announcement. I want to introduce Bill McBrayer and his son Thomas from Hickory. And Bill is a nominee for the State Board of Community Colleges. And so they give you a round and standing ovation. And I looked at Thomas, I said, I just got an endorsement from the Speaker of the House in a full house. And so on that Thursday, we voted. There were 5 nominees, and there were only 2 open seats. So that's when I had to go down and kind of work the crowd. And so I listened to it during my lunch break on a live feed, and now Senator Todd Johnson out of Union County and myself were the top 2 vote getters. And so that's how I became on the State Board of Community College. The term itself is a 6-year term. And I'm like, holy cow, that's a long time. But, in hindsight, I really realized that it takes every bit of the 6 years to get your hands around 58 colleges, 120 campuses thereabouts. So it does take a long time. The way they choose the state board is the governor has 10 appointments. And again, all these appointments are a 6-year term. So the governor has 10 appointments. The House has 4. The Senate has 4. And then it's filled in with the lieutenant governor and the state treasurer. So that's the 20 voting members for the state board. And then we have a non-voting member, which is our state SGA, Student Government Association representative, making our total board of 21 people. So you may ask, well, what's the role of the state board? What do we do? Again, you read about the Board of Governors, and we're nothing like the Board of Governors. We're the good guys. Hope Phil Walker isn't listening, because he used to be a Board of Governor member. But the role of the state board basically is we're the policy-making body for the Great 58, is what I refer to them as the Great 58. And we have committees, just like I'm assuming y'all have committees. We have a personnel committee that is chaired by me. I've chaired that for the past 4 years. Every president in the system that's hired within the system has to pass through the personnel committee, and there's many, many other things that pass through personnel. We have programs. Every college in the system that wants to add a program or drops a program has to go through the programs committee. The strategic planning has a committee. Our finance is a committee. Accountability and audit. Our state board governance and policy is a committee. Legislative Affairs is a committee. My first year on the board, out of the 6 committees, I was on 5 of them. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I told one of my buddies that came in with me, I said, I either made the chairman really mad or he thinks I'm really special and can handle all that. And in hindsight, it really turned out to be a blessing because I have served on each of these committees. And then last year, I was voted as vice chair. So it has come in handy. Some other things that we do, and I'm kind of checking my clock here to make sure I'm good on my time. Some other things that we do, we have a president's association. There's 58 community college presidents, and they have an association. The trustees have an association. Local trustee boards are selected by the governor, the county commissioners, and the local school board. And there's 700 some local trustees. And so they meet on a monthly basis and they present at our monthly meetings. And I told our crowd one time, I said, you know, we sit around this room and make policy for all these colleges, but we really don't know how it affects them. And so last year I talked to Walter Dalton, who was the president of the President's Association. I said, I'd like to have a president present at each committee meeting and a trustee present at each committee meeting. So when we're talking about issues and problems that we're having or they're having, it would be good to have the person that actually makes it happen at the meeting that can share their pros and cons about it. And it was definitely welcome with open arms, I can assure you. Another question that Coy had written down that I thought was worth sharing with you was unique experiences that I may have encountered on my time on the board. I've experienced quite a few unique, and part of the uniqueness is I've been to visit 46 of the 58 campuses. Evidently, that's never been done in state board history. So I became an immediate celebrity throughout the state by going. At first, I would call the president and they think, you know, they're in trouble, state board members coming. But the more that I went to visit, the more they realized that I was a friendly foe, just wanted to come down and meet them. And that's what I would do. I would meet with them and maybe their senior staff for 15 minutes or so. We would take a campus tour. We'd have a photo op. We were in and out. I was in and out in about an hour. I would get their cell phone. They would get my cell phone. And that can be good and that can be bad. You know, during the pandemic, I picked up the phone early on and called a lot of presidents, check in on them. During the flood of 2 years ago, picked up the phone and called the ones down east. And that's good, you know, make a good relationship with the presidents, but it can be kind of stressful when they call you when they're wanting something. So it's a two-way street, but so far it's turned out really nice. And I've made a lot of good connections, a lot of good friends. And, you know, my son always wanted to be in politics. So I thought, you know, this will help out too. I said, if you ever see a McBrayer on the state ballot, vote for him because it's either going to be my son or it's going to be me, but probably be my son. And then we, I know in the press here lately, we've seen a lot about Peter Hans. For those that don't know, Peter Hans, great American. Love that man to death. We hired him 2 years ago to be our president. And in the 5 years I've been on this board, I've been through 5 presidents on this board. When I first came on, Scott Rawls was the president. He left. He was leaving anyway. Then we had George Fouts was our interim president for a year. And then we replaced him with a full-time one. He only stayed a year. And then we had another one sit in as an acting president until we found Peter Hans. And Peter, you know, it says a lot when at the press conference you have a Democrat governor and you have a Republican House Speaker and Senate Pro Tem and the president of the university system at the time, which was Margaret Spellman, standing behind them as introducing him as the next president of the community college system. He did so much for our system and will continue to do so much. He is now the president of the university system. I'm sure you've read about that. And we just kind of figured that was in the works even from the beginning. But, you know, with our transfer program from our community college into the university system has not always been the smoothest of transitions. We have not always jived with the university system. You know, we're the inferior product. That's what people think. I get so aggravated, and I've told Tim Moore more than one time, look at him square in the eye, that y'all have it all wrong. When it's budget time, and mark my word, this year, you'll see it again. Budget time, when you see that publicized, it'll have university system, K-12, community college system. We always come up third. And I said, it's not right, because it should be K-12, because your first 3 years of learning are your most important for your reading and comprehension and your success in life. So K-12 ought to be number one. We should be number two. And the university should be dead last, because they got more money than they have sense in a lot of cases. So anyway, I get fired up on that. But Peter Hans was a great guy for us. He will be a great guy. When he called me before he ever started this hunt, or before they ever reached out to him, he said he might be doing this. He says, I can assure you, if I get that job, that I will help the relationship between the community college and the university system. And he is already doing that. So hats off to President Hans. So that leaves us with a vacancy now at our own place once again, that we don't have. So we are looking for a president. Hopefully by year's end, you will have an announcement saying that we have picked one. We meet pretty regularly, and it's closed session, so that's about all I can say about that. But my thing on the community colleges, we're more valuable today than we've ever been. I mean, every time there's a catastrophe in this state, a flood, a fire, a pandemic, you name it, the community college is always at the front of the line, always at the front of the line. So what I would ask each of you to do is, you know, I challenge you to go see community college. Go to CVCC, go to Caldwell Community College, wherever you are at the time, go visit the college. If you're in business, you need to make a call to the community college. You need to help them educate your folks. And I use the word educate because Virginia Fox hates the word training, and I've become a hater of it too. She calls it the T word. Said you train animals, you educate people. So I try to use that word. So I know CVCC in any way they can. I know they're there. I know he's waiting. He will help you and or your company be more successful in setting up programming or whatever you need. So I challenge you to go do that. And then in closing, I just hope that I have enlightened your opinion concerning community colleges. Because I was at a tailgate one day, and a lady was there, and I said, how's so-and-so, the daughter? Said, well, she's okay, but we had to bring her home from school, and she'd gone to university. And I said, oh, really? Well, that's too bad. She goes, yeah. I said, well, what's she going to do? She goes, she's going over to the community college. And I said, oh, that's good. She goes, no, she's better than that. And I'm like, I beg your pardon? She goes, she's better than that. And I got a little closer to her. I said, say that one more time. Now, she knows who I am and what I do. And she still said the third time, she's better than that. That just flew all over me. But that's the perception that we have. And so my job, and I hope I can reach out to you to let you know that we're not second-class citizens at the community college. We're a viable source for education, even if it's workforce development, apprenticeships. You know, the apprenticeship program used to be with Department of Labor, then it was Department of Commerce, and now it's here at home where it should be, community college level. So always, you know, use the community college. That's what it's there for. It's for the community. And so that's all I have for you today. I want to thank you for allowing me to share my passion for education in North Carolina. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone might have. So thanks again.
Question. Hey, Bill, it's Mandy Hildebrand. How are
Hey,
you?
man.
I love your passion. I love it. I just want to share something. I didn't think about it till just now, but CVCC is working with a lot of the hospitality community, and we're going to develop a hospitality academy, just like the Furniture Academy. Because during this COVID, we all started working together, and I was just getting ready to say, Dr. Henshaw and Mueller, Dean Mueller, and so they've just been wonderful. So I was just echoing your call, how CVCC partners so well with businesses, and they're going to help us have the best hospitality academy in the state.
Well, thank you, Mandy. You know, we also have a manufacturers academy and a construction academy, and it's all developed after the furniture. That's gotten such publicity statewide and United States wide. So thank you for that comment.
Thank you for what you do.
My pleasure.
Bill, what have been a couple of the key challenges facing the state board or the community colleges during this pandemic?
Well, I have a few notes on that, but I didn't cover it, but I'll be glad to cover it with you. You know, the good thing about the community colleges is that I'm trying to find 1/3 of our instruction was conducted online prior to this ever happening. So it was really easy to flip over to online. The problem that we have is you know, and I'm just as guilty as anybody. So everybody that's on this call here knows about CVCC or knows how great it is or the size of it and what they do. And I'm the same way. But when there's 58 of them, they're all out in the boondocks, you know, Tri-City, Tri-County or Tri-City up in the farthest west you can go, almost looks like a high school campus. And, you know, they don't have the opportunities that we do. I tell everybody that Garrett Henshaw's the golden boy. You know, if he asked the county commissioner for a gold toilet to sit out in the parking lot, they would get him one. And I tell him that to his face. And it's funny, but it's true. But all these colleges have pivoted, I think is the key word. And every time I called the presidents to ask them how they were doing during this COVID early on, they all talked about how them and their senior team came together and just made it happen. They just went from in class to online. And not all of them are online because you have nurses, you have firemen, all those type people. So we had to make special provisions for that to continue to take place. And we had to work through the governor's office to do even that. Did that help any, Corey?
Yes, indeed. I'm very familiar with that because, you know, I worked at CVCC for 27 years in top administration, but we started online instruction many years ago, and we have some excellent faculty and always have had, and they always rise to the challenge, and they certainly have done it this time. I keep in touch with some of them, and it's amazing what they're able to do and the resources that it takes in order to accomplish that. But it's a wonderful thing, and the students are doing very, very well with online instruction, and they get a lot of help.
They do.
Personal help if they need it, because some of them need it much more than others. But that help is there, and that's provided, of course, through the compassion of those instructors and those administrators that work in the instructional area, both in continuing education and academic credit.
Right. And I continue to lobby every chance I get to people that our teachers, professors, whatever you call them, it's kind of like a nurse. It's a calling because they don't make a whole lot of money. And that's one of the things we continue to fight for is raises for our faculty. You know, let me just say this right quick. I printed it off because I thought somebody might mention it. But not only do the community college work separately, but they work together. And just 2 weeks ago was a fine example of CVCC and Gaston College coming together for a PPE initiative partnership. And by doing so, the General Assembly awarded them $14.3 million between CVCC Manufacturing Solutions Center and Gaston College's Textile Technical Center. All this money And if you've never been to the Manufacturing Solution Center in Conover, I urge you to go there too. That's the most amazing place. Dan St. Louis will take you through it. I'll be glad to meet you there and take you through it. It's a great place, but the colleges work together for the betterment of the whole too. So just thought that'd be worth mentioning, because the city of Conover the Conover MSC got over $9 million to help produce the PPE. Just another example how they come together to help out.
I have a question. To what extent has the attendance or the number of students been the last few years?
Well, up until about 2 years ago, our FTE, full-time equivalent, is what that's called, and that's how we get our money by full-time equivalents, was down. But we got a task force together and got some key heads around the state, headed by Peter Hans. And in the last year, we have upped that tremendously. This year, I think it's going to go even higher, because, you know, if you're supposed to go to a 4-year school and they're sending you home, then don't even go back. Why don't you just go to community college to start with, because it's online. And if you're, especially that is, if you're a freshman or sophomore, most of those core courses can be taught at the local level anyway. So I don't have numbers yet for the fall, but I see them. I don't see how they can't help but rise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, this is Lou Wetmore. If you'll click on your chat button down at the bottom, you'll see another couple of questions, I think.
Chat button. Oh gosh, you're asking me to do something here. Let me.
Well,
I'm on an iPad.
I can read the question to you. It's from Alan Barnhart, and he says,
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned the job placement of community colleges versus universities. Do you think community colleges are better at addressing current industry needs, where universities are planting dreams that everyone can get a high-paying white-collar job?
Boy, amen, Alan. Yes. Amen. And I'm not throwing off on the community, the universities. But you take, for example, the Furniture Academy. We came up with an idea, and I met with Garrett Henshaw and said, here's what we're thinking. And he made it happen. Just boom. You know, it didn't have to go in front of 14 committees and this, that, and the other. He made it happen. And I mean, that's how nimble our system is. And if there's a need, and that's why I say, if you're in business and you need help, or you don't even think you need help, reach out to the community college and see how they could enhance what you already have going. That's a good thing. Yeah, the universities, and matter of fact, some of the universities are starting to look that way. NC State, especially, is leaning to help look into the field of more jobs. You know, go to school with begin with the end in mind. So whatever you're starting with, make sure you have a job that you can go to. I don't want to mention any degree. Well, I can mention one that I used to throw off on a good friend of mine I grew up with. He went to Western Carolina, and I said, well, where are you majoring in? He goes, history. I said, oh, that's interesting. What are you going to do with that? And he goes, I'm going to open up a history store. Yeah, so it's a little joke, but he ended up retiring from federal probation as an officer. So he ended up making a pretty good life for himself. But that's a great question, Alan, and I'm definitely say that the community colleges are by far better equipped to get people in the workforce.
Yeah.
What was the other question, Lou?
I think it was from Coy Hudson, but I think you've already answered that one.
No.
He was just asking about the challenges you faced during the pandemic, but I think you've already answered that one. And that's it for now. If anyone else has any more questions, we got a little bit of time left.
To add to what Bill just said about responding to industry needs, I know when I was at CVCC, we had very active advisory committees for most of our technical and vocational programs that prepared individuals for specific jobs. And they met regularly, and the chairman of those committees was an individual from industry that represented that area of work. So, that helps keep our programs relevant, current. It helps keeps the needs for the equipment that is used and taught by the instructors that are then ready to go to the, when they graduate, they already been exposed to most of the equipment or the types of things that are be doing at the local job market. So that also keeps things current.
You know, one thing that we fight constantly, and you made me think of that, Corey, is if like, let's take welding, for instance. When I go to community college, they all look alike. They are all built about the same time. Some are nicer than others, but they all have welding. They all have hair, nail, you know, all the stuff that community colleges have. And so you're talking to a welder instructor. And so he's got this young person or not young, this student that is taking a welding class so that he can go in and get a job in welding. And so halfway during his class, this student gets a job making $5-10 more than the instructor's making. And so the instructor's sitting there scratching his head thinking, what's wrong with this picture? Here I am teaching this kid or this student, and they're going to get a job welding that I'm teaching, making more money than I'm making. And so then we lose those instructors to the industry for that reason. So I'm always trying to sell, we need money for our instructors because it's a calling, and to do it and do it right, you know, you got to have a passion for it, but you also have to be able to make a good living at it as well. So that's one of the issues that we have. But as you can tell, I love what I do. And if you ever have any questions about community college, call me, call Garrett Henshaw, call any of the presidents. And I'd love to take you, you know, I had back surgery a couple of years ago, and during my rehab, I was out of work for about a month, and I called Dick Garlitz. Dick, I hope you don't mind me talking about you here. And he'd been wanting to go to the Furniture Academy, so I gave him a first-hand tour of the Furniture Academy. And I thought, well, that was fun. So next couple of days, we went to the Manufacturing Solutions Center. And we thought, well, that was fun. So the next week, I took him and we went to the simulated hospital at CVC. Well, that was fun, you know. So I acclimated Dick to community college that I don't think he really realized what was over there sitting off the interstate. And that's what I find in most towns that I go to throughout this state is that people in the community, they've heard about the community college, but they really don't know what it is or what they do. So that's what I challenge y'all to do, is to get out and learn a little bit more about your community college.
Well, you know, Bill, I think this is Lou Wetmore again. I think you're certainly hitting the nail on the head and I have been to the facilities we have here in Catawba County, and most people have no idea that we have the sophistication that we have in the schools and in the hospital and all of the other things. And I wish more people knew about that. But I can tell you this, my wife and I are certainly big fans of the community college. My youngest son was not a good student in high school, and we did get him to enroll in a community college, and something happened. We're not sure what it was, but he went on to UNC Charlotte, and now he got through med school, and he's now a first-year resident at Norfolk, Virginia. So that's
How about that
story.
That's great. Well, I invite you, I told Coy, and I'll tell the whole group, once this COVID breaks, we have a brand new facility at the Furniture Academy. It's the Bassett Learning Center, and it's a classroom that we do for our students and outside people. So we could, you know, you could get some food catered in. We could meet there, tour the Furniture Academy, bring your pocketbooks because we have a showroom that all the pieces that are made have to be sold. 100% goes back into the program. We did the second floor of the city of Hickory's building this past year. So I urge you that if you want to meet at the Furniture Academy, sometime it's a doable thing, and I'd love to set it up for you.
Well, good. Well, thank you for that. Well, Bill, thanks so much for that presentation. It was very informative. We really enjoyed it. And Coy, thank you for arranging this.
Indeed. Thank you, Bill, so much for taking your time to do this.
Thank you.
The only thing that's not real good about Zoom is we can't give you the round of applause you deserve, but just please accept our hearty thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Now, for the rest of the the members, next meeting, John King will be he'll give us the invocation. And our next week's program will be a visit by our district governor, G. David Wachter. We'll be looking forward to that and hearing how he's negotiating through all this pandemic and COVID-19. In the meantime, if you will, join me for the four-way test. Is it the truth?
Truth.
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it bring good
Friendship
Will it be
beneficial to all concerned?
Sir.
Thank all of you for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And thanks again, Bill.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Bill.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.